Today I'm going to try to draw this mountain in Stepentsminda, Georgia, also known as Kazbegi, Georgia, which is just 12 kilometers south of the Russian border. Stepentsminda is surrounded by mountains on all sides, but most notable and tallest is Mount Kazbeg, standing at just over 5,000 meters or 16,500 feet. And here it is. This is Mount Kazbeg. It looms large over town. You can see it clearly from pretty much anywhere. But from where I'm sitting, I think I have one of the best views I could ask for. And I'm only sat at a bit more than half of its height, somewhere around 3,000 meters or 10,000 feet. Real quick, if you're enjoying this video or this series in general, go ahead and subscribe to the channel while you're here. It's the free and easy way to show me your support, and it means a lot. If this is the first of my videos that you've stumbled upon, well, I'm learning to draw while I travel the world. Currently, I'm in the country of Georgia, and I'm just over 100 days of doing these drawings. So this won't be very good. I'll just go ahead and let you know that now. But I think I've made a few good ones here and there, although that's not really the point. This is all about my process of learning. So while the drawings have improved, don't expect a masterpiece up here. I'm just doing my best. Speaking of up here, how did I get here? Well, great question. Wouldn't you like to know? No, I hiked, of course. My wife and I, along with our good friend Rowan, who, if you've been following along, is not a newcomer to the channel. We took a little trip up the Georgian military highway, which goes all the way up to the border, making stops along the way, ultimately finding ourselves as near to the top as you can pretty much get here. And we're here for this. My wife and I actually had this hike on our list last year, but due to some heavy snow and thunderstorms, we decided against it and swore we'd make it back. So here we are. We made it back, this time with a friend, and we couldn't have asked for better conditions. Not only was the hike a dream, but the view of the scenery in particular was unbelievable. We really got lucky with this, and even though I kind of dreaded having to bring my tripod and stool and drawing stuff up the mountain, I think it was worth it for this. Bad drawing aside, this was a special experience for me, and I'm glad I get to share it with you. Speaking of bad drawing, well, it's not the best. Even as I set up this shot, I knew it was going to give me a hard time. There's just not a lot of contrast going on here. So aside from the shape of the peak cutting through the sky like a cartoon mountain, there was very little for me to sink my teeth into. You can make out a few ridges as well as some of those more obvious textures in that large rocky area to the left. But on the whole, this isn't doing me any favors. So the first thing I did was try to just focus on one small area, which is ironically just out of frame, and I was hoping to do that all the way through. Unfortunately, the area in which I'd chosen to start was maybe the most obvious, save for the peak itself. So when I was ready to move on, I had trouble figuring out where to look. So I just drew the peak. Knowing I was about to have a rough go of it, I decided to include some clouds to give it an extra something, and I made them kind of cut into the peak, which ultimately does very little, but you know, it is what it is. Despite the difficulty, I still really enjoyed this process. This was very puzzle-like, and I found that I always have a good time with drawings that make me think that way. I think even though I was way out of my depth, the process of observation changes with drawings like these. Since there's so little for me to go on, I find myself taking extra time to look. I start to notice smaller and smaller features and textures and details, and it just adds to my appreciation of the scene. And obviously today's setting in particular intensifies that appreciation, but still, the point stands. There's something really special about taking things in, just gazing off into the distance or noticing tiny characteristics up close. I don't ever know which references will get me there, the ones that elevate my experience, but I always appreciate when they do, and it adds another layer to my enjoyment of drawing. Obviously, I've learned a lot of little technical things, and I'd say the drawings have improved, at least on average, but there's also this whole subjective part, the experiential aspect that was totally unexpected for me, but is maybe the most fulfilling part at the end of the day, which is funny because when I started this, I mentioned wanting to simply be able to draw what I see almost casually, and I didn't really have or need a reason for wanting it. There was just this deep longing that I wanted to fill, but I didn't ever envision what that might look like or feel like in practice. But it's this. Somewhere deep down, I wanted to, sit at a cafe table for 10 minutes and pick out something to draw, or to climb a mountain and freeze my ass off and do the same. And not for any concrete reason, but for this feeling that it gives me, this warm, peaceful, almost joyful feeling that I feel while I'm doing it. It's just amazing, and I hope I don't forget that. YouTube or not, just sitting down and observing something, anything, and just trying to draw it. There's something magical about that, and I'd really love for it to be this constant yet quiet background part of my life, and there's not any reason that can't be, It's as easy as carrying a pen and a little sketchbook and seeing where that takes me, and I love that. So yeah, anyway, it was unbelievably cold to sit here and to do this, hence the gloves, which is a whole other can of worms, one I'll no doubt have to come to terms with as winter rolls in. But it definitely had me rushing by the end, especially as the wind started to pick up. My hands, legs, and face were numb, so at a certain point, I just called it, and we were on our way. Big thanks to my wife and Rowan for putting up with me and my very important hobbies. Okay, so it's quite vague, pretty hard to make out, but since you just stared at the context all this time, I think you get where I was going with it. This stuff is crazy hard to figure out how to draw, but I'd love to look up some tips and tricks because I feel like it's more of a stylistic thing specific to, in this case, mountain landscapes, than it is any one technique or something like that. Same with the waterfalls. It's about understanding one's way around the environment, and I just don't know how to do that with this. Regardless, like I said, I still had an amazing time, and I don't hate the drawing by any means. It's just a little unfinished, I would say. Anyway, I appreciate you for taking the time to watch this one, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.